Apologies for any technical difficulties. What we'll do is send the video out to everyone tonight. But that's exactly why we brought the real life kids here this evening. So without further ado, I will turn it over to them. Now, Divya and Shelby, did you pick a coin? Did you flip a coin, or who's going first? Shelby, why don't you kick us off?
Hi, everyone. I'm Shelby. Sorry, water bottle just fell. I'm from Kilgore, Texas, and I went to Palo Alto, California for my exchange trip. I'd like to say my exchange experience was a little bit different because I feel like I feel more like politically the same in California rather than like in my hometown, because I kind of feel like an outsider in my hometown when it comes to like political beliefs. So I feel like the biggest like kind of like conversations that I had were whenever we were actually talking in Kilgore, because I got to talk with some of the community leaders and some of the kids that I've been going to high school with like my entire life, but I just never wanted to really associate with them. But I've gotten a lot closer with them, and I've gotten a really like large understanding for like where they're coming from. We talked a lot about like religious beliefs and like economically how different like it is here, and how that, you know, changes the way they, you know, want to go after things. And I think that was really beneficial for me, because before this, I was like, I want to go head off to college and leave Kilgore in the rear view, you know, but now I kind of want to, I get like the charm of like a small town, you know, and I think I'm a lot more appreciative of like the people and like the Southern hospitality that I see here. And to go opposite of that, I was obviously really excited to go to California because I had this like grand, like romanticized view of like the city life. And I've always wanted to live in a city, you know, just because there's like so many more accommodations and you just like a lot to do, it seems like. So I was really excited to go to California and meet all the new people. And it was really, really fun. But I think it also put into perspective that like they have problems too, you know, because I had such a grand idea of the city life. But I think that was healthy for me, you know, like having the balance now. And but we also did do a lot of fun things in California. And then we also, I think the biggest shock for me and like the biggest lesson that I learned was like the division of wealth between like Kilgore and like California and like the area that we were in. I think that that was really helpful for me to see as well, and education differences. But yeah, all of that aside, it was really, really fun. Like I got to meet some of like I would say like closest friends I've made in the past 5 years, because I feel like I've stick with the same people all through high school, but I got to meet like new people, and like having these deep conversations over the past 2 weeks and just spending like all your time with these people, you get really, really close and really attached. And so it was really, really sad having to say goodbye, but we told each other, we have like a group chat that we're still talking with. Granted, it's only been like a couple weeks, but we still talk to each other often. And I told them that if they're ever in the Dallas area or in Texas in general, to like give me a call, and I'm going to do the same. I plan to go back to Palo Alto one day because I think it was like a really nice place. But yeah, I think the connections were like the best things that we did. My favorite times were just like whenever we were just like relaxing, you know, just hanging out and being like kids, you know. So yeah, I think that was like the best times for me. And also just like the amount of learning. I feel like going to like a bigger city, my eyes are open to like a lot more of like the opportunities that are available to me, that I thought were so like far out there before, but now are kind of more attainable in my opinion, because I've seen it firsthand. So yeah, I don't know how long it's been, but I don't want to get too rambly. That's kind of a concise version. Is that good?
That's perfect, Shelby. Thank you. And with that, we'll turn it over to Divya.
Okay. Hi, Shelby. Nice to see you again. It's really great to see so many familiar faces here. Even though it's only been a little while, I already missed you guys a lot. Hi, everyone. I'm Divya. I'm from the Palo Alto, California. And a couple of weeks ago, I traded my white Nike sneakers for some snazzy red cowboy boots and joined a group in Kilgore, Texas for a week. I think there's a lot I have to say, but I wanted to start off with a quote that my dad told me before I went on this experience. And I think it's a old African proverb, but it says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And I think that there are 2 layers to this trip in my experience. The first is like when you intellectualize it, you have a group of people coming together to have these important conversations, learn about each other's diverse backgrounds, and do the work of democracy, to be honest, that needs to happen. And I've always been really interested in seeking diverse perspectives as a way of understanding my own. And I feel really grateful that AEP has given me the opportunity to do that. That's like the complicated version. The simple way of saying it is that you got a bunch of high school students around a bonfire who are really tired after eating some kolaches and like some barbecue and pecan pie, and we're just talking. And I think those are the 2 layers that sum up the AEP experience. It's not just about this like larger mission of building relationships and citizenship that will actually inform policy in a better country. It's also just about like students having fun, becoming friends, and actually finding a home somewhere else. And off the bat, my number one thing I'm grateful for is the ability to call, in some sense, another place my home. And I'm very grateful in particular for all the adults on the Kilgore trip, and especially my homestay family, that made me feel so at home in that place. So with that, I thought I would share a couple of revelations I had reflecting on the experience and a couple of fun stories, I think, from the trip. And the first thing I realized is that I think not everybody comes into conversations with the willingness to change their mind. And I think that's okay. But I think that's why it's so important that so much of this exchange was about high school students or people who just graduated, friends like Jordan, May, I think I saw Chase here, like coming together and just have conversations. And I think what's so special about being an 18-year-old, at least I know this, is that I know enough to understand that I don't know anything, which means that I am constantly questioning my own beliefs, and I'm willing to understand everybody around me and what their own beliefs are. And not to say that none of the adults in this space don't have the same perspective, but I felt like I learned a lot from the adults, but didn't expect me to change their minds. Whereas when you're talking with a bunch of students, we're all in a place where we kind of might change our minds. I think what's so powerful, I think when we were reflecting on the Kilgore experience on one of our last days, one of the homestay dads, JD, reflected that like at the very least, he's started to question his own beliefs. And that is what I've come away with, like questioning my own beliefs. One specific example of this is that, when I was in Kilgore, I had the chance to shoot my first gun and like picking that thing up, it was pretty heavy, but shooting at discs, I started to understand, oh, this is more than, just like a weapon of destruction. It is a place for community bonding. It's a place where you can like be competitive like a sport. And talking afterwards to some of the officers who had helped us understand that experience, I'm not so sure I still believe that background checks are the best way to solve increased gun violence across the US. I feel like maybe it's the wrong solution for a different problem. And so that's just one specific example how actually putting myself in an experience like going to Kilgore has changed a little bit of the preconceived notions I had with the separation I had living in the Bay Area. And I think the second thing I want to say is that sometimes it takes new people to see things that in a new light. What I'm grateful for having all the amazing Kilgore kids come to Palo Alto is that I've been able to see my own city in a new light, in seeing the immense socioeconomic wealth, seeing the immense opportunity, but also the stress and the culture that comes with that. And Shelby taught me how much biking is something I should be grateful for, although I have to say I'm quite scared of biking, but it teaches you to appreciate what you have. And I think on the flip side, what I learned about Kilgore and a town like that is it's so powerful to have a community that's one, so united by faith, but so generous with each other. And I think that's something that sometimes you lack. And I see values held so well there that I think that we don't have in Palo Alto. And I think it means a lot of people don't have a very strong purpose in life. And I think the last thing I wanted to say before I go on too long is that there's something to be said about just the power of listening. And I've understood the power of listening to understand rather than responding in a lot of the situations. And I think that as a nation, in terms of our media and the conversations we have, we could do a lot by not trying to argue with people all the time when we go into conversations, but just have a genuine curiosity to listen. And I'm so touched by everybody on this trip. Jordan, man, I'm seeing so many faces that I know. Rachel, Matthew, everybody here has shared this genuine curiosity to understand somebody else. And I think that what that does is it builds relationships. And I think that when we learn to have relationships besides all the political stuff and the beliefs we don't agree with, we start doing the work that actually changes things at higher and higher levels. And so with that, I'm going to say thank you. And we're more the same than we expect. And I'm so grateful. All of you guys have a home in Palo Alto, I know. And I'm so grateful to have had the experience to call two places my home.
Thank you so much, Divya. We have more students than I could possibly count right now here tonight. And I can think of no one better than Paul Solomon to start asking them questions and to interview them. We also have Mrs. Langford here tonight and Mrs. Hilton here tonight, two of our host moms, and Glenn Young, who is our community leader in Kilgore, Texas. So for the next bit of time, Paul, would you be willing to give a brief interview or ask some questions to our students, and I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I thought we'd actually start with Glenn. Glenn, who you're with there? Who's that? Can you introduce your person in this?
Yeah, so David introduced me as a community leader, but this is our mayor, Ronnie Spradlin, who just walked in. And so again, one of the benefits of a small town is and our students know him. He spent a lot of time with us last week. And so this is Mayor Spradlin from Kilgore.
And Mayor Spradlin, is it true that you made the kids from AEP honorary citizens of Kilgore, or is that just apocryphal?
No, that's in writing. They have a copy of it. And we had AEP Day in the city of Kilgore.
So I heard, but now I get it from the, if you'll pardon the expression, the horse's mouth. Glenn, you got cut off. We didn't hear your audio at the beginning, and I thought it was particularly pertinent. So would you redo your audio for us?
So that was a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure I remember what I said. Zoe Mike can tell us, but was I talking about AEP and what it meant to the community?
Yeah.
We're talking about how you didn't have to push conversations, how conversations happen naturally.
That's right.
Yeah, I think one of the really important things, and first of all, let me say, I think two of the elements that made it such a success, one is we had some local community leaders that were passionate about this and just genuinely enjoyed being with the students. But the other side of that is the quality of the students, that we threw them into some very foreign situations and they handled that graciously. They were curious. And so I think their approach all week was not to win an argument, but to win understanding. And I think that's the key. For me, that's what made it a great week. And again, that's a testament to the quality of the students that were here. And so that was one of my big takeaways for the week. And our community genuinely just kind of, they really feel like each of those students is a part of the community now. I've had more people ask me over the last couple of weeks, oh, how's Jake doing? How's Divya doing? What's Matthew up to? So there's some genuine connections there.
How durable do you think these relationships are between communities and between people? I mean, it's easy to imagine that, in the first flush of the experience, it's, it has oomph, but then that there are diminishing returns, as there are in so many relationships. Hey, I'll call you in 2 weeks, and then it just.
Yeah, I think that's correct, Paul. Some of you guys know I do some work down in Honduras. I thought this was more cross-cultural than most of what I do in Honduras. And one of the things that happens, I've always called it cultural jet lag. There's a really great experience, but then you can either distance yourself from that, or so the answer to that question all depends on what happens next over the next few months. I've had adults and students say, well, how can I get in touch with so-and-so? And if so, how does that work? And so I think for it to be durable, those connections need to continue in some way.
But that, David, is what you and Olivia and Lydia have in mind, right?
Very much so. And I know, Paul, I think you should turn that question on the kids, because I know we have Ethan Chen, who told me that he wants to go work at a plant in Lake Charles, Louisiana now.
Oh, right.
Ronnie, you may be getting an application from Jake Merritt, who's here tonight for an internship soon. We'll see. So
Well, let's do that immediately. Ethan, you're not on my screen because I can only get 25 at a time. This is serious what David is saying. You want to actually work in Southwest Louisiana?
I think it's a definite consideration. I think before this trip, you know, the engineering work that I wanted to do, I definitely was thinking about coasts and working on the coast in major companies. But I think going to a petrochemical plant and seeing that the work that they're doing, I'm seeing how vital it is, that I have options for if I want to pursue those kinds of engineering careers, and that there are communities there that are willing to support me in pursuing those futures.
I'm going to ask this question of a bunch of people, but Ethan, starting with you, after all, I know you. What would you say were the most important strengths of the program, and what suggestions would you have to improve it? You can take either of those.
I think some of the best things was talking to community leaders and professionals. Like, we had a professional development day, and I personally learned so much about the community by talking to that tour guide who was a petrochemical plant worker, and going to the local news station and listening to their story about what happened to them after the hurricane. And I think, you know, just having those opportunities were particularly something that I never thought would be part of my life, but they were, and I'm grateful for them.
Jake, David mentioned you, but I remember you first and most significantly in my mind for having had this realization about Texas that you had not had before. This is just online, right? This is before you actually went. You want to explain that first before I pursue what you're planning to do going forward?
Sure. The realization was essentially that, well, it's part of a larger realization that things are sort of always more complicated than they seem. But in this specific case, it was about climate change and about companies and industries based around fossil fuels. Specifically, that you can't just with one big stroke get rid of everything. People have actual lives down there. They make livings down there, and it's so different to actually see real people and understand that if you're playing around with ideas that sound nice, like let's solve climate change, you have to be diligent and careful, and you have to understand the human element of that too. So if we are going to make serious policy changes around our response to climate change, then we have to do that in a way that does not totally decimate a good portion of the people who live in our country.
Because you realized how many people's lives and livelihoods depend on the fossil fuel industry as it currently is constituted. Is that right?
Absolutely. As it's been explained to me a couple of times, it's not just people drilling the oil, it's the engineers who figure out how you drill the oil. It's the engineers and the manufacturers who figure out the drill bits and the parts of the drill. It's everything runs off of it. And you take out the big thing and all the little parts fall down. It's like a house of cards.
So what is your plan for the future now? What was David referring to?
Oh, I don't think I'll actually take an internship with Mayor Ronnie down in Texas, though I definitely will be back in Kilgore. I plan on going this year, and I think there's a lot of value to be had in a politician who's willing to come and see the program and the kids who are coming in. And I think that was a big part of why that trip was so successful. So while I won't have an internship, there's definitely still more to learn.
Mr. Mayor, what struck you? What surprised you, if anything, about the kids who came in? Can we hear? Glenn, you're muted.
There There we go.
Okay, I was very pleased to see how communicative the students were and how they were willing to have an exchange and interaction about things they were passionate about, but open-minded about what we felt too. And I think we all came to realize other people's point of view and that we did not have monopoly on good ideas.
Were you surprised? Were you surprised by the kids?
Yes, I was. They were very mature. They were deep thinkers and easy to like.
Well, you all have a reputation for liking people easily. So were they more easy to like than other people?
Yes.
I see. Shelby, you're from there. Were you surprised by Palo Alto? You're surprised by one thing I've heard is that people from down there were surprised by relatively cool attitude of people up here. I'm in Boston, and fast. The things were too cold and too fast. Is that true? Is that thing true?
I'd say somewhat. I talked to Liv about this a little bit, but I feel like the conversations are just like held a lot differently because Southern people are very like, yes, yes, tell me more, like very interactive, you know? And it's just not that way up in California. And so it's kind of like, I was like, oh my gosh, do they like me? But it's just like a different way of talking that I learned. And people aren't as personable, I guess you could say, which, you know, is like another thing that I learned is like, isn't like a Southern thing that I missed whenever I was like talking to people in California. But yeah, I did notice.
Did you miss hugging? One of the things I asked the question, I should explain. Bob Glabber, who was a key part of this program, who unfortunately passed away a few months ago. He's from New York originally, and then Boston all his life as a Harvard Business School professor, Kennedy School, and so forth. And and I've known him for 45 years, had known him for 45 years. He learned to hug in Lake Charles, Louisiana, literally. I'd never seen him even hug members of his family before. Never hugged me, and we were extremely close friends. And once he was in Lake Charles, and then he was a hugging fool. I mean, you know, he was just. And so I'm just wondering whether or not that's an anomalous, idiosyncratic moment or event, or whether or not that really is a difference that makes a difference.
Yeah, I think with like physical greetings, I like don't always lean towards those, but I did hug my host family like whenever I met them because I felt like it was just like a Southern thing to do, even though it's kind of outside of my comfort zone. But yeah, I feel like physically I didn't feel as much, but like emotionally, I feel like it was very like prevalent. Is that the right word?
Anna O'Sullivan, you were down in Lake Charles, right? Did you feel this difference, the physical difference, the hospitality difference? You seem like a pretty warm person from the little I know you. So yes,
there was
no?
definitely, yeah, I think there was definitely a difference. And I think a lot of us went into it with the expectation that because of, you know, political differences or just any sort of animosity between like the North and the South, that we almost wouldn't be met with that Southern hospitality. And that wasn't the case at all. Like we would tell people where we were from and they would instantly be like, tell me more about it. Like, I don't know, everyone was just so warm and open. And then, you know, when we went back up to the North, we had, you know, quite a few of our Southerners be like, huh, they're not so friendly up here.
But how was it? I mean, we had a party to fill everybody in. There was at least in the week that Anna and that crew were here, there was like a party that we threw out here right where I am now for our neighbors, and we went out boating. You saw a little video of that, or a snippet of the video. And I thought the neighbors were being about as friendly as they ever are. But maybe you're not the right person to ask. Maybe Raylan is the person. Where are you, Raylan? You're not on my screen here. Raylan?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
Hi. Honestly, I was quite shocked how nice everyone was in the North. just because I came in kind of expecting the opposite, but I will say that there were some moments on the trip, not really from my experience, but definitely from for other kids, that were a bit rocky and definitely put them out of their comfort zone, and it's just stuff that we wouldn't experience here.
Like what?
Oh well, the first
From
we were
Lake
in,
Charles, Louisiana. People should know.
yes, oh yes, I'm from Lake Charles. But the first day we were in Wellesley, we played the penny game. Oh, my mom is here. We played the penny game, and so we're given not a penny now, but like $1, and then we have to go around local businesses and trade with them, and keep trading to try to get an item that is worth like immense sentimental value or like just a good value. And one of the men that we met, he ran a toy shop, ironically, but he wasn't the nicest. And me and my fellow peer from Lake Charles, Alana, had some rough moments with him.
What happened? What happened?
He he kicked me out of his store, and
And he kicked you out of your store, his store, because you were what?
I don't know. I cannot tell you, but I can give this question over to Alana if she wants to talk about her experience.
Alana, are you here?
Yes, I am. How are you doing, Mr.
Oh, hey, how you doing? I didn't. You were on the other screen for me. So what happened in the toy store?
So basically, I walked in, and you know me, I was just being like kind of trying to rub people the nice way, because you know in the South, if you're nice, you get something for it. So I
should explain that Alana is the person who taught Bob Glabber how to hug. Just to be clear, we could tell that story later. But anyway, please continue.
Yes. So I was just being nice to him, and you know, first thing he did, he insulted our traded items, which was magazine, a leave-in conditioner, and some other stuff, and he called it crappy, which was fine. You know, I was like, okay. But then basically, you know, it led on for a little bit, and he was just, I told him, he was like, oh, well, another group had a kid from Lake Charles in here. And I was like, oh, well, I'm from Lake Charles, but it's different for me because I lost my house in a hurricane. And his reply with the straightest face ever was, well, whatever I give you won't bring back your house. And at first, I really wanted to tell him, because I am a Christian, I'm going to leave. Thank you for your time. But I was like, you know, this is a different experience. Like, let me try to, you know, because my thing is Sam Bucher, I don't know if he's on here, but me and Sam are good friends. And that's how Sam was kind of like that whenever we first met. So what I did, I was like, okay, I'm going to look at this guy like he's Sam. I know how Sam works, and I know how Sam can get because of his environment, which I learned living out there. I mean, not living, but like being there for the time. So I treated him like he was Sam, and I was like, okay, well, whatever. And then I guess he seen like how my face kind of came down when he said that. And he was like, well, I may have something for you, so let me go get it. And he went and got $125 5th edition Melina WWE action figure, which was kind of like cool because I watched WWE and I was like kind of attached to WWE. So it was kind of like, oh, okay, you made up for it. But it was just really, really rough because never, ever have I been to a business and the owner or worker ever say something so offensive. But that's just apparently like being rude and like snarky and sarcastic is a part of the culture out there. So that was just another thing to experience.
Wait, tell the story about, if you would, about you and Sam. Sam is from Wellesley High School and from a fairly affluent background, right? As you found out, didn't you Zillow his house or something?
Yes. That was on a FaceTime. That was not on an AEP call. We were just bored and being nosy with each other, and we seen how much his house was worth, and we were like, that's about half of our city, but okay. But either way, Sam, for Sam's background, Sam is extremely humble. That's one thing I've never had an issue with. He's never thrown like anything in our face, never. If anything, he's wanted to share it, and he's wanted to share his experience. So basically we were on a call. This was like Mr. McCullough came to my school, so I guess you could say I was like the guinea pigs for like the beginning. And Sam joined maybe a few months after me. And at this time we had a lot of political discussions because a lot of the kids who were involved like mainly like lean toward the political side of things, and it was just more interesting for us. So basically the topic was the Confederate flag. And they're all talking about it, about how it's like a symbol of whatever. And I told them, and I was like, well, if I see somebody with the Confederate flag, like I'm not gonna exactly tell them like it's a problem just because I grew up around it. In my preschool there was actually a Confederate flag. It was a Louisiana flag, Confederate flag, and then the American flag. Like it was so normalized. It was never a sign of I hate Black people or I want slavery. It was just a sign of Southern pride. Now, as I got older, it became more socially unacceptable, and you don't see them now. And if you do see them, you know what they mean, especially with January 6th and the rebellion. Like now it has a different meaning. But whenever I grew up, it didn't mean that. So I told him that, and he immediately went off on me. And he was just so upset, and he was like, he says a snarky comment basically, because what happened was the Zoom ended because it went on for way too long. It was like a 2-hour call, went on for way too long, so it ended. And later that night we FaceTimed as a group chat because it was just like 6 or 7 of us, wasn't a lot of us. And then the topic got brought up again. So that's whenever he like went off on me, and he was like, well, who's gonna tell her, like who's gonna tell her, as though like I'm a Black girl who doesn't know what the Confederate flag means. But in reality, that's not true. And the longer I got to know Sam, and the longer Sam got to know me, he started to understand that, one, I'm not a confrontational person. Like if you're acting crazy, I'm going to mind my business, because where I'm from, people shoot. Just like Divya said with the guns, that's not a stereotype. That is real. So it's like I'm not used to just being like, that's wrong. That's not, it just wasn't a part of me. I didn't grow up around it. But taking that trip to Boston genuinely showed me why Sam reacted the way he did. It's not him as a person, it's not his character, it's his environment. And getting to learn that environment for myself taught me so much, and it honestly made me view him differently. Because I thought, I was like, snarky comments, you can just change that. You're just choosing to be, he's not choosing to be anything. Like the way I grew up being okay with it, he grew up learning that it's not okay, and you should do all you can to eliminate that problem.
Jordan, does that register for you? Did you have a similar experience?
Not specifically with Sam.
No, I don't mean. Yeah. This isn't a call just about Sam Bucher. This is much more general. I just meant in general that kind of understanding of where people from a different culture come from.
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest one. My family works in the plants. My stepdad works in the plants. My brothers, that's all they know how to do. That's all they've ever done.
This is in Louisiana?
This is in Louisiana.
Right.
And so, well, I personally understand the effects of climate. Like, for example, climate change was like a big thing that kept being brought up because both Kilgore and Lake Charles are very, our industry is, petrochemicals and oil. And it was a lot of conversations of me and the Kilgore kids explaining to Palo Alto kids when I was up in California that like, this is livelihoods that we're talking about. This isn't you can't take the people out of the situation, and look at it as this big thing because my family needs to pay our bills tomorrow. We can't wait a year for jobs to change and moving and, stuff like that. So, and then they had to explain to me that like, they see it as if we're perpetuating the problem and we see it as if this is our livelihood and we have to. It's been a lot of having to explain that, both sides having to explain that they're people and they see the problems and they're trying to address the problems, not like nothing. I've had to like learn that nothing comes from a malicious intent. It's almost always from environment. People, I have this bias that people up in coastal regions are very pretentious. They don't see themselves as pretentious. They are not purposely trying to lord their social status over me. They are just raised to exist that way. And it's not, and then people down here are raised to see the Confederate flag as something of Southern pride. They don't mean it maliciously. And so it's been a lot of learning that like very rarely will you find someone who is raised with the intent to be mean to other people and to not understand, but they are raised a specific way. And it's like understanding that we're all people. We're not, villains.
Are you more sympathetic to snarky Northerners now?
Definitely, I think I am. I think I hear the snark, and I used to really, down in the South, if an adult asks you a question, they are very excited in their voice. Like the mannerisms are different. When I see an adult that I haven't spoken to in a year in a grocery store, they're like screaming at me, asking me all these questions. And then adults, when they would ask me questions in Palo Alto, they were very calm. And it's just a difference in vibe. But they all care. It's just like getting used to how everybody acts. So yes, when someone up north would respond with less enthusiasm than I was used to, it took some getting used to, but I started to understand that it wasn't because they didn't care, it's just because they were less Southern.
Got it. Raylan, and that's Raylan's mom. Is that you? Yeah, that's your mom?
Yes.
Hey, very nice to meet you. So now, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong, but one time when I interviewed you actually for PBS, you were talking about your family and that a number of them had been in the petrochemical industry. Is that right?
Oh, no,
Am I
sir.
wrong?
No,
What?
not us.
Not you. All right. So then I'm mistaken. But please, but you're from Louisiana,
Yes.
from Lake Charles.
Yeah.
How did you actually host kids at your house?
I did. I had Jillian and Anna were here.
Okay, great. So give us the parental perspective on this.
I think stop laughing. I think AEP is an amazing program for these kids. We really enjoyed having the girls here and the whole group. We actually hosted everyone here for dinner one night. And it was enjoyable to see them all getting along. And like say, for instance, when they first drove up, these kids have been online together. You were talking earlier about how long will this last? How long will they stay in touch with each other? These kids have been together since before the COVID shutdown.
Yes, in this case, yes.
They relied on each other a lot during the shutdown. They did daily calls, whether it was part of AEP or it was on their own. They were speaking with each other daily. So I think that these friendships will last a lifetime for the majority of them. They were able to get a lot closer here. And I saw that with the girls and with Raylan here, as well as with the boys whenever they would all come around. I just really think this was a great program for them. And teaching them, as these kids are saying, how diverse the other areas are, how, other people's backgrounds and how other people perceive things is completely different from how you do.
Yeah, were you surprised by the kids?
No, not really. Not really. Yeah. I've met several of them on the Zoom calls before whenever I've gone in Raylan's room. So
you already knew them.
Yeah, some of them. Yeah.
Did you feel some of these cultural differences that everybody else is talking, that the kids are talking about?
Not really. I don't think so. I think Anna and Jillian probably felt, I hope they felt at home here. I didn't feel like there was very much of a cultural difference that came out in our home. But we also didn't see them very often. They were here for breakfast and they'd come in kind of late in the evening after they were finished doing all of the stuff, all of the activities that AEP had planned for them. So.
Would you have liked to see, one of the things we're talking about, because this after all was just the first pilot, and of course it was dormant for a year because of the pandemic, was whether or not the kids should spend more time with the host families. A number of the kids have already said the best time was the downtime.
Right.
And there is a feeling that maybe the AEP overscheduled this first, this first pilot year, maybe out of anxiety that there wouldn't be enough to do, or you wouldn't want to leave kids on their own or something. So it'd be interesting to hear your perspective on whether or not there should be more time with host families.
I think it wouldn't hurt to maybe have at least one afternoon or evening where they would have a little more time. Of course, we did have that first night that we had dinner here, but it was more the kids hanging out themselves. They were scheduled quite a bit as far as from 7:30 in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning till sometimes 9, 10 o'clock at night. A lot of driving around. I think that they could have used a little bit more downtime, but Raylan, I apologize. You need to go in the other room. I apologize for that. She got the giggles, so it was distracting. I think it would be beneficial to have a little bit more downtime and maybe some time with the host families so that they could get their perspective on things.
Yeah. Rachel, we haven't heard from you. Talk to any of the issues that we've been talking about here. Cultural differences, more downtime, more time with host families, whatever. What was your experience?
So I have a couple of, I don't know, I've got a couple of little takeaways. So first of all, I think like every student that was on this exchange genuinely impresses me. Like all of these people are people that I'm now like proud to be friends with. That, and then so my high school, I think we had one student go out of state, and obviously like go to college out of state, which this is not super on top on like on
your
top.
high school is what? So just to for people.
I go to Kilgore High School. Hi. Okay. Yes. And I don't know. So we had, and obviously there's trade school and people went into different branches of like the military, but college wise, we had one student go out of state and she went to Oklahoma. So that's not even too far away. But I don't know. And I think that for me, like I didn't really like apply anywhere but the school that I wanted to go to, but and that may just be a me thing. But a huge part of the reason that I didn't apply to schools out of state is because I just didn't know what was out there. Like I don't know. I just really like, I don't know. And Texas is ginormous, so that there are a lot of options within Texas. But I didn't know what it would be like to be in a big city. I didn't know, I didn't know if it would be too far out of my comfort zone. And it's not that I was like too afraid to be away from my family or anything. It was just that I genuinely had no idea what my experience would be if I were to be out of state. And so for me, it was kind of cool to just be in. I went to Boston for my exchange, and it was just really cool to be out there, just to know kind of what it would be like if I were out there. And it's also just impressive to me because a lot of the students from Palo Alto and from Wellesley and just the Boston area, they all are going to, most of them, I guess, are going to schools that are a pretty good distance away from home, or they're out of state, or I don't know. There's different variants to it. But it was just, I don't know. It's not a super huge difference, but it's noticeable to me because when you go from like this huge group of students where everybody is going all of these cool places to like my high school where only one person is going out of state, it was kind of just like, oh, wow, that is like, I feel like that's at least notable.
Do you feel more comfortable about the idea of going out of state now? I mean, for school or for?
Oh, absolutely. I wish I had applied to more places. Like I didn't apply anywhere out of state, and I genuinely wish I had. And part of that was just because now I understand. And I don't know, I travel a good amount. And so I've been out of state and I kind of understand it, but it's different. It's different to like visit a place like with like on a family trip than it is to, I don't know, meet students that live there and can tell you exactly what it's like to live there. And I mean, and we've lived there for like a week, and we had days packed full of living and experiencing what life in Wellesley or Palo Alto is like. And so I don't know, doing those things, it was just like, okay, wow, I truly understand what it's like to be here to some degree. Obviously I can't understand all of it, and I probably won't ever be able to. But I don't know. I wish that I'd done this earlier. It was such a cool experience, and I'm so lucky to have been a part of it. Like it's something that I'm genuinely like, I can say that I am so proud to be part of AEP. And I like, if nothing else, when you take a group of students like out of their homes and into like this like place, you kind of force them to like all they really have is each other. And so you like force these connections, and not force necessarily, but they don't really have like all they have is each other. And so they have these connections that are being built that I just like I can't imagine another environment where that would occur. Like the way that all of these students are connected, and that like the I don't know, like everybody genuinely cares about each other so much. Like I have a lamp in my bedroom right now that we got through the penny game that somebody mentioned earlier that I'm going to bring to my dorm and probably remember forever. There's this random little like cow thing that we also got in a penny game that I'm keeping forever. Divya, who spoke earlier, like made me this bracelet that I have yet to take off, and I don't intend on taking it off. I don't know. It's just they're the like those connections that you can't make an experience other than this. So
You might want to take that off occasionally. Just
no, not happening.
just saying. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a grandfather, and so I get
Yeah,
concerned.
I mean, I'm sure I'll take it off for something, but right now it means too much to me. So
Okay, no, I didn't
Paul,
say
we
that.
are just quickly, Paul. We're coming up on the 1 hour mark here.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that if anyone in the audience has questions for our
Oh yeah,
kids,
I'm
also-
sorry. I just got so caught up. I still wanted to ask Jillian and Jason Ben questions, but
And
yes.
Matthew and Jillian, that's right. And Wumi haven't asked questions. I know, Matthew, we all want to hear about your first plane ride, for example, because you were not able to go on a plane until AEP. But if anyone in the audience has questions, please fire away. You can write them in the chat or just
raise your hand, because I can see most people. John, Lewis, Tony, you got questions? Michael?
We're just listening.
Just listening. All right.
Enjoying it so
Yeah,
much. So
great.
happy that you guys had that experience.
Questions? Anybody questions? Lewis? Oh, yeah, there's a question. Deb Fallows, please. And tell people who you are, Deb. I mean, or what you guys have been doing.
Hi, my name's Deb Fallows. My husband Jim and I live in Washington, D.C. We're writers, and we spent about 6 or 7 years going around the country visiting small towns and reporting on a lot of questions and answers about what life was like in those towns, how they overcame adversity. Primarily, we were going to places where the plant closed or the factory closed or the mill closed. So how did the towns respond, and how did they come together or not? At any rate, my question to you is, all of you have had this great personal experience, or 20 so of you. Is there a way that you're planning to take this home to others in your high school or in your community to try to broaden the experience, or talk about it, or share it in some way that others can have a little glimpse of what you have done?
Jillian, why don't you start?
Yeah, well, first of all, my Wi-Fi's been spotty, so if I freeze or cut out, I apologize. Let me know. I'll repeat anything that needs repeated. But yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot since I've gotten back, because the trip definitely did kind of have kind of change, like shift my views on a lot of things. I think
you tell people where you're from.
Oh, I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, or a suburb of Boston. And I kind of recognize up here, like even, or especially, I guess, amongst like kind of my friend group associating with like kind of a very like left-leaning youths crowd, where like kind of the South really gets like a really bad rap from people on the left, and who see it as kind of like a lost cause and like dragging us all down. And that's really the opposite, I believe, is true about the South. They contribute so much to our culture and our industry and our economy. So I've just in the past few weeks even kind of been like, you know, it's stopping my, like I had like, I told someone I was in Louisiana, and they're like, why? But even kind of like stopping those kind of like little jokes and quips is kind of the first step I've been trying to take to share my AEP experience with the people in my community.
Do you think it's scalable? That's the question Deb's asking, really. It can this be expanded to the extent that it would need to be to, you know, get some significant portion of high school seniors to actually experience the rest of the country or other parts of the country?
I think that I think that's kind of up to I think that'd be great if that was possible.
Will you be an ambassador for it?
I'm really interested in seeing what happens to AEP in the future, and I'm definitely wanting to be kept up to speed and kept in the loop. And I would be happy to help in the future as well too.
Ben Martin's from Lake Charles. Ben?
Oh yeah, totally. I think this experience of the past 2 weeks, granted it did take me a while to come back down off of the sleep deprivation, but after being able to fully digest it, I would say it's been one of the best experiences I've had. I would love to see more kids get involved, however that's possible. I know David and you were already on the case for that one.
Well, but the question is, I think Deb's question is, are you on, are you folks, are you and the other people on the case? Because I think you've got more credibility than we do, certainly with regard to the people in your high school.
Oh yeah, totally. I would, I know I talked to Lydia about this in our little debrief session, that I would love to stay involved with AEP to whatever extent would be possible. I think it's a great program. And I think as, a lot of us go off to college, I think it'd be a good idea to let us disperse information across the country and hopefully get more students involved, because I think it's a really beneficial program to a lot of students, and I would love to see it go forward. And if I'm able to help at all, then I would love to.
Matthew? Ambassador, scalable, this just cherry-picked a group of students who are unusual and this is where it ends?
Did you say my name? He did. Okay.
Yeah, your audio's a little funky, but I think it's okay. And now you're frozen here.
Yeah, it was really spotty on this computer. Can you guys hear me at all?
No,
it might be really bad.
It'll be a problem.
Okay. I'm just gonna. Has it gotten any better?
There's somebody who's I can't tell. Chase, what's you ambassador, scalable? This is the end of the line. What's your take on it?
Yes, sir.
Explain where you're from. Tell where you're from.
I'm from Kilgore, Texas. I actually wasn't a part of the program when I first sort of got involved. The AEP group in Kilgore came to my youth group on Sunday morning, and that's sort of where I met everybody and got to know the program really. I had heard from Rachel that she was going to Boston with an exchange group, but other than that, I hadn't known much about the program. But throughout the week, I guess you could say it was just that Southern hospitality, or just because I'm a social butterfly, but I sort of stuck around with the group. I enjoyed the company and getting to hear everyone's different point of view. And then throughout that, we all developed really great bonds, and I would definitely love to continue being a part of this organization, because I being one of the ones who wasn't part of it from the start, I've really developed this appreciation. I know I was talking to Mr. David about it when we were when he was with us at Sabine, when we were with the Lake Charles group, but it's such a great organization, and I feel so lucky to be able to take part in it, and I would definitely love to continue advocating for it and telling others. As far as my impact from what I've learned, I'm moving away from my hometown, so I don't think that the impact I'll be able to have will necessarily be as direct, just because I'm moving away from home and I'll be sort of starting over. But what I will take away from it is that different viewpoint that I gained from being able to go to somewhere completely different from Kilgore. I went to Palo Alto, which is almost opposite from Kilgore, Texas. I've compared they give off the same small town sort of thing, but it's definitely a lot different from Kilgore. And that viewpoint that I gained, and all of the opinions and the beliefs that I've heard from everybody, has just given me like a newfound understanding. I tend to lean towards Republican, but meeting all of these people, I've gained an understanding, and I can sort of see where they're coming from in their beliefs. And I think that that's so valuable going forward in life, because not everybody is going to have the same opinion as me, and it's good to be able to react to that and to be able to have a civilized conversation with them, be able to sort of understand one another. So maybe not necessarily a direct approach coming away from that journey, but definitely one of being able to react to things that I find in the future. It's been great, and I wanted to thank everybody. So yes.
Cool. So yes, we got to wrap up because we've run over time now. But so I'm going to kick it back to David. But I think we need you all to be the ambassadors for this program, because I certainly am an old coot, but even David is a little long at tooth when it comes to recruiting high school kids, and that's what it's going to take. And I think that's the answer to the question, Deb. I mean, what we're focusing on is the germinating from this, planting the seeds that we can broaden it out on a one-to-one, person-to-person, school-to-school kind of basis. And for those of you who are leaving town or going to college or going to some job in another town or whatever, it's every town in the country. I mean, it's just the premise of Deb and Jim Fallows's mission and forays into throughout America. It's not any specific place you go, it's anywhere you go. And it's the commonality among us that we're trying to remind people of, if that's the right way to put it. David?
Thank you, Paul, and thank you everyone for coming tonight. On that note of scale, our staff right now, we're working very hard because we have plans to basically grow the program to 40 towns in over 20 states in the coming year, which would bring our enrollment to almost 200, between 200 and 250 kids. So students, really, we need you guys to be those ambassadors this year. We need you all to share this experience. This won't be the last event like this we're going to host. If you have a question for our students that wasn't asked tonight, please email me directly at david@americanexchangeproject.org. We know all of each other here. And I'm happy to follow up with our students. So thank you one and all for coming. I hope you've seen the possibilities behind the program that we're building here.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.